So while this isn't the most technical review channel out there, I do like to keep my reviews pretty firmly planted in measurable things. Whether that involves measurements of self noise, sensitivity, room rejection, all of these different things have metrics that you can measure by and then measure them to other microphones. Even on the more subjective stuff like tones, you can measure these things with frequency response charts. You can take that information and measure them compared to my words and make a more informed decision. But there is something about this microphone that makes me not want to talk about any of that stuff. It's one of the few microphones that I've ever experienced or reviewed that provokes more of an emotional response. Rather than just looking at this as a tool to capture beautiful audio, this to me is more than that. Let me clarify. Whenever I'm performing or recording music, I can connect emotionally with certain pieces of gear, but not all of it. I can connect to the instrument itself, like the tone it produces or the stories I have with the instrument. I remember saving up to buy basically all of my guitars. I just don't necessarily connect on an emotional level to a lot of the audio equipment I use to record said instrument. Whenever I get a microphone for review, I can get very excited about the microphone, the tone that it captures, and how faithful it is to the recording, but I don't think of it necessarily as part of the performer or the performance. Hey, by the way, Soyuz did send me this. I have to send it back. I really don't want to. Obviously, you should know that. There's your standard YouTube disclosure. Musical instruments, the guitar, the amps, these are all part of the performance, and they are more than just tools to record things. Over the course of the last month of using this microphone, it has blurred that line. Its design, its presence, and of course its tone, it has inspired me to create more. And that's something less quantifiable and less measurable than what I can typically show you on these reviews. Obviously, I've discussed this in the past, but the design, the physical, aesthetic design of a microphone, I believe is holistically very important. And I think it really matters for the exact experience and the exact emotions that I just described. A beautiful microphone might inspire you. It might make you perform better. And hey, on that note, I am excited to announce I've actually started a second channel. And I've actually shared a cover of Hozier's Cherry Wine that I recorded on this microphone. The second channel is nothing completely new. It's just going to be dedicated to the performances that you see on this channel, the fully produced performances. You know, YouTube analytics tells me you guys usually piece out of the performance part of a review, usually about halfway through. So this is just a good way to keep it all in a consolidated space, and they can just stand alone as beautiful performances. So please, it would be amazing if you went and subscribed. There are 2 videos waiting for you there already. Hey, I hope to showcase your work, subscriber work, on the channel there eventually, so keep that in mind. So let's back up a little bit and talk about Soyuz as a brand. Soyuz is a Russian company, which right now, obviously, I'm not going to get into it too hard, but that's probably something you should consider given our current political environment. The Bomblet is actually hand-built in a town called Tula, Russia. And after speaking to them at this year's NAMM, they really pride themselves on a dark, rich, warm tone, not bright at all. And this is kind of inspired by the golden age of recording, all these ribbon mics, these tube mics, these FET mics. These are all very dark mics. And yeah, this microphone is so dark. So take a look at this frequency response because it's actually really wild. So while most companies typically go with a relatively flat signal with a presence boost in like the 5 to 10K, they pretty much just cut that information. There's actually a decrease in the 5 to 10K. And there's even more reduction in some areas that I'm assuming are maybe for sibilance response. And the extension into the low end is pretty much straight as an arrow, crafting a characteristically aggressively dark tone. Hello there. It is a different day. Same hat though. Some things never change. Actually, you know, the reason I wear this beanie all the time is because I'm growing out my hair. So one day you will see me with a man bun. It's gonna be sudden. You won't see it coming. Let me know what you think about that. Actually, maybe don't. I don't know. Maybe I don't want the internet's opinion on that. Anyways, I'm here to talk to you today about DistroKid. As many of you guys know, DistroKid is how you publish your music. It's how we take that production that we've been working on for a month straight with all these tutorials and turn it from a file on your desktop to something the entire world can see. And that's done through publishing it on a ton of different streaming services, including a bunch you've probably never even heard of. But of course, that also includes Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, all the main ones. And on top of that, as we've discussed in the past, DistroKid is way more than just a distribution service. DistroKid literally is an entire platform to control your small independent business. There are tools for revenue sharing. There's a whole new platform exclusively for making music videos and publishing music videos. You can use DistroKid to make lyric videos and lyrics accessible. They even provide you ways to connect your music to major labels. And you get all of this for only $20 a year. It's an absolutely insane deal, and I'm sure many of you have already used DistroKid or will use DistroKid soon in the future. There's a reason it is the #1 music distribution service, because they are great at it, and they're also amazing at supporting independent artists and creators. So with that in mind, you can actually even get a further discount by using code AudioHaze. So you'll get an even cheaper price than the $20 a year. Anyways, thanks to DistroKid for sponsoring today's video. Let's get back to it. The Bomblet is also an absolutely no frills microphone. There's basically nothing physically on the microphone for you to adjust, like a high pass filter or anything like that. Except if you want to engage a 20 dB pad, you literally have to unscrew the capsule, insert the feature in between the body of the microphone and the capsule, and there you go. Now you have the proper resistance to have a 20 dB cut. This is an analog microphone to the extreme. And actually, interestingly enough, this microphone is actually kind of a derivative of a derivative. It's based originally off of a Russian Lomo microphone, and that capsule was initially inspired by the CK12 capsule, which you find in AKG C414. So this is a derivative of the AKG 414, which is then further a derivative of that original Russian Lomo capsule, which kind of makes sense to me. It's suiting, at least, because it seems like every single condenser microphone that happens to be one of my favorite is usually a derivative of some older 414 variant. So at least I'm consistent, in my opinion. So let's get into some spec information here and then have a bit of a larger discussion. Really only two things to note. One thing is that this microphone can take 140 decibels of sound pressure level, which is plenty high, plenty respectable. If you're ever putting a condenser microphone up to a sound source at that level, you can probably expect a level of risk with any condenser microphone. You're playing with fire for like 85% of the microphones on the market. The second thing that was rather surprising to me is a self noise of 18 dBA, which is pretty high, especially for a microphone that costs $1,400. This makes this microphone less ideal for voiceover applications, which is a bit of a shame, especially considering the tuning of this microphone being so low focused and having such a strong control of the low mid-range and having a warmer tone in general means it's really a great tone for voiceover applications. Most people want a dark microphone when it comes to voiceover, and unfortunately that high self noise means sometimes it's not going to be usable, especially when you start to process the signal. This really is not a huge issue if you're putting this microphone in a production. It's virtually impossible to hear that buzz or that hiss in any kind of production setting. Now, granted, I doubt the Bomblet was ever truly designed to be a voiceover microphone. You know, I think there's some wiggle room here for forgiveness, especially when it comes to things I doubt this microphone was meant to do. So let's talk about what this microphone is and what this microphone isn't. This is a beautiful sounding microphone with a beautiful design that has literally inspired me to create more. I've never looked at a microphone and really felt inspired to write before. Sometimes I have acoustic writing sessions into this microphone rather than my raw ears. Raw ears? Whenever I'm not recording a video, this microphone pretty much always sits on the boom arm these days just because I love it being there. What it is not is good for budget users and studios. For the obvious reasons, it's $1,400, but also, my God, this microphone is sensitive. It could pick up a pin dropping in the living room, which has made this review really fun when there's people screaming outside on a Friday night.
Hi, I'm editing, and I think I need to clarify the statement I just made. I hope this makes sense, because it's kind of a weird concept. The microphone is incredibly sensitive to environment sounds, but not really room reflections, if that makes any sense. You'll hear it in the blind test. Basically, what I'm trying to say is if there's anything occurring in the environment, whether it's sirens outside, which you might hear now, or people outside, or my roommates making noise, it will pick that up. But it does not really absorb a lot of room reflections. And I think that is primarily because of the frequency response and how it does not have a lot of high-end information to absorb all the wall reflections. So I hope that makes sense, a distinction between environmental sounds and room reflections.
And you know, it's likely designed to be this way. It's a $1,400 microphone. It should have no obligation to work really well in a unforgiving studio environment. I think it's expecting to be, sat in a relatively soundproofed location among professional hardware and professional treatment. It should not have to justify existing in a sub $1,000 studio, unlike some other microphones that present themselves as the home studio solution. So despite this, and despite its complete incompatibility with my noisy Brooklyn studio, I find myself using this microphone on basically every opportunity I can. Like I said, there's something unquantifiable that makes me want to use this microphone even when logically there are other microphones that would do the job better in an unforgiving environment. The nature of this microphone really does blur the line between an artistic, creative artifact and a tool to record audio. Its presence really does inspire me, and quite frankly, especially with the microphones I see these days, the volume of them I see these days, there's not a lot that do that. And I guess it should do that, because it's $1,400. So I think it's probably right to do a blind test, right, against the other $1,000 plus microphone that we have available to us. Let's also throw in a $700 Lewitt 540, and for fun, we will also throw in like a sub $500 Transformer dark condenser microphone, the Roswell K67X. They should be pretty similar. You know what? Let's have some fun too. Let's also throw in the King B2 because it is a dark microphone that's under $200. So interesting competition there. Did you hear about the guy who invented the knock knock joke? He won the Nobel Prize. Did you guys hear about the guy who invented the knock knock joke? He won the Nobel Prize. Did you hear about the guy who invented the knock knock joke? He won the Nobel Prize. Did you hear about the guy who invented knock knock jokes? He won the Nobel Prize. Did you hear about the guy who invented the knock knock joke? He won the Nobel Prize. So it's too sensitive for my room, too expensive for my studio, but I use it anyway because it is inspiring. Honestly, it's like buying a Porsche that you can't afford and like taking your kid to school in it every day. Like it's super impractical for that application, but it makes you happy. And with that, and with the ethos of this concept in mind, let me play you out with a little song. You can follow me on Instagram here and work on a project with me here. There you go.